Ladies and gentlemen, our next session is truly interesting, our keynote speech on port optimization. And to do the honors and to welcome our speaker, can I please request Mr. Raj Dias to escort our next speaker, who's extremely special all the way from Los Angeles. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he is the Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director of Los Angeles Port, Mr. Eugene Seroka. Thank you so much, sir. Let me also thank you, sir. From pre-session, pre-lunch session, we went to a post-lunch session, but you ought to tell us if it's better post-lunch or was it better pre-lunch? Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you, Simran, and who couldn't be energized by that introduction? Thank you so much. And I think, Sonny, if you're ready, we're going to roll the tape because I wanted to spend my brief time talking today about what we're doing at the Port of Los Angeles, our initiatives, and the common ground that we have found between the India ports supply chain and what we're doing in the United States. So, Sonny, if you're ready, roll the tape, please.
Welcome to the Port of Los Angeles, the busiest container port in the Western Hemisphere. Los Angeles is America's center for international trade, a global model of innovation, security, and sustainability. Welcome to America's port.
The Port of Los Angeles, 7,500 acres, 27 terminals, 270 berths, 43 miles of waterfront. More than 50 container trains daily, 22 million local consumers, nearly $1 billion of cargo per day, 86 container cranes, almost $300 billion in annual trade. Continuously improving upon efficiency, speed to market, reliability. As the gateway to connectivity, the Port of Los Angeles has committed hundreds of millions of dollars to ongoing capital improvements. Main channel depth of 53 feet. Big ship ready and serving the largest vessels in the Trans-Pacific trade. Progressive terminal and backland improvements. Continually advancing future technology. Expediting goods to 14 major U.S. freight hubs. By water, by rail, by truck. Goods movement through the LA Trade Gateway is fast and efficient. The caravan of cargo never stops. Supporting the cargo trade that moves through the nation's busiest container port requires the most skilled, efficient, and reliable labor force. A longshore workforce over 14,000 strong. Fast ship turn times. On-dock rail capability at every container terminal. Reliable and professional truck drivers. World-class leadership delivering our customers' needs for tomorrow, today. The Port of Los Angeles is at the forefront of environmental change in the port and maritime industries. A catalyst for green technologies. World leader in shoreside power for cargo and cruise ships. World's first clean truck program. Significant air and water pollution reduction.
The Port of Los Angeles offers shippers unmatched capabilities. From the large volume of cargo our terminals can process, to having North America's largest port workforce, clean truck fleet, on-dock rail network, and regional portfolio of warehouse and distribution centers. Above all, we take pride in our ability to deliver exceptional value to our customers through strong relationships across the global supply chain and our focus on technology, sustainability, and land asset utilization. We're here to enable your business needs, and that's our commitment to you as America's port. Thank you very much. So that gives you a broad perspective of our port and the work that's being done today. The Port of Los Angeles is a municipal agency, so as part of government's work in the United States, this, along with the Port of Long Beach, represent about 40% of our nation's imports. So the statistical significance of this port is very great. We're young, we're only about 110 years old, but the interesting part of this is how we are acting at the confluence of all the activities among our supply chain stakeholders. And our job is to add value to what they do and enable their success. The work that's being done at this port is also one that is foundation-based on public and private sector cooperation. That complex is very large, and its ability to process cargo of this magnitude is one that we continue to try to improve every day. There's a lot of work around these areas of port optimization and carried out into many different facets of our supply chain. If combined, you look at the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles, they'd be about number 9 in the world today. But interesting, as a gateway port, we only use math to count the container movement through that facility. Most other ports around the world have dual transactions, from ship to ship, from ship to shore. So if you followed that accounting principle, the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles would be ranked at the very top of worldwide throughput. And that's very important to us because, as you saw from the video, the importance of the port as an economic engine, not only in the United States and the region, but worldwide, is something that we take with a very high level of responsibility. Last year, in comparison, we moved almost 9.4 million container units, and the economic impacts are great. Just as a snapshot from this particular slide, in our region, whose population is a little more than 22 million people, we account for almost 1 million jobs in our area. 1 in 9 people have a job related to our port complex in Southern California. So that responsibility around increasing international trade, focused on supply chain optimization, but in its most core essence, it is providing jobs for so many people and trying to advance the welfare of our families and friends throughout our region. Seaborne trade makes up about 90% of all trade activity worldwide. And with the advent changes in our industry, every region has now seen so many complexities come to light. New partnerships in liner shipping, new requirements from cargo owners, and the ability to blend technology into an age-old transportation method. And that is where the challenge lies today. We have problems worldwide of congestion, trying to meter cargo, find ways to better appropriate time and distance with how we manage and process that cargo. So many of our complexities are shared worldwide. And this was part of the attraction in working here in India with both the Secretaries of Shipping and the Special Secretary of Logistics to try to find those common areas and what we could replicate as best practices. And I know in the past months in working with both secretaries, we found ways that we can take learnings back to the US and share maybe some of the successes we've had with the ports in India. But it goes beyond just the simple port. It's the entire supply chain and how we act as that center point, touching so many stakeholders and having that added responsibility of showing that we have convening powers to bring people together. And that's where I credit Raj and Nick today of having so many delegates where we can compare notes and share ideas on how to make our trade that much stronger. Vessel sizes have also added to the complexity. Very quickly, we've seen vessel sizes grow in our marketplace much faster than we can complete infrastructure projects. These decisions, from the time a ship is ordered until it's waterborne, goes very quickly now, in many cases between 2.5 years in timeline. That means that we as ports and supply chain stakeholders must be very nimble in how we are producing services and capabilities for our waterborne partners. In Los Angeles, the largest ship we have handled is 18,000 container units. But different from other ports worldwide, about 90% of all cargo from our ships are being discharged and loaded in one single port call. That's very important. And for those of you who are in the shipping industry, our largest ship now is moving 24,000 container units on and off in that single port call. Nowhere else in the world are we seeing that type of activity. So very important that we have process management and optimization tools at the ready so we can be prepared for those larger ships. Part of the challenge now are these new partnerships in the liner shipping business, and we call them alliances. Formerly competitors now sharing space on vessels, collaborating on deployment, and going to market as a single unit. These three players now have gone from 22 major shipping lines down to 11 combined in these alliances, where industry consolidation now has become the norm in trying to find the best way to reduce costs and deliver service in a marketplace that is quite demanding. So keeping our eye on these three alliances, but more actively participating in the design of scheduling and deployment gives us a little more of an edge to deliver that service that's required. Taking a passive approach was not an option for us. We needed to be involved and working very closely to make sure that in unison we could deliver that high level of product. In looking at our focus areas, this is really the driving force of what we are attempting to do in Los Angeles. Three very distinct pieces that we think are adding value to the customers and stakeholders that we serve. Strategic land use. In California, we're not going to expand our port's property. We must make great use of that 3,100 hectares and 70 kilometers of waterway. How better we can use that land to increase productivity and drive more shipments through is really the task at hand. And that's done through the second area of process management. How can we move containers with less touches? That has two benefits. It increases the velocity of the shipment move, and secondly, it reduces emissions that go airborne. The less touches to a container, the less activity of diesel and smog-producing equipment that creates pollution. And that work is also very important to us worldwide as we continue to try to manage through our industry in the reduction of CO2. And then lastly, technology. Our industry has data points throughout the supply chain universe. How better can we harness that data? And more importantly, share it among our customers and stakeholders so they can be better prepared to work with their human capital as well as their asset-based requirements. That really will unlock the potential of our industry in how we manage growth, such as we've talked about earlier this morning and into this afternoon. The country of India will be expecting 7+% GDP growth. That means container shipments, bulk, energy, and other products will continue to grow. We as an industry will have to manage that growth while being even more refined and more savvy with technology. So part of that land use is very important. We've taken previously dormant parcels and activated them in the supply chain. One key area noted on this screen will help increase our port's capacity between 10 and 30%. A near dock yard that will be able to groom containers on trailer wheels so they can be moved out swiftly more than once per day. We have about 35,000 truck gate moves every day at the Port of Los Angeles. And to augment that in using special property to prepare these containers for very swift pickup and delivery can be a big difference maker as terminal properties on the marine side continue to bear with increased volume and how better to process that. So this has been a collaboration of marine terminal operators, liner shipping companies, and the cargo owners to find better ways to prepare their shipments for ease of pickup and delivery. We are beginning testing on this property very soon, and when enabled, we'll be able to challenge those gate activities with more fluidity and swifter capabilities by our truck community. The next area that has worked so well for us in early days is being able to optimize our port's throughput through digitization. We thought early on that we needed to find ways to increase our use of technology because we faced crisis. When I first started at this port about 4 years ago, we were in the midst of great transformation in our industry, growth in volume, but dislocations throughout the supply chain. Supply chain stakeholders were not talking to each other as this volume growth continued to come our way. We also saw divestiture of assets that are very key to moving containers. And then finally, a protracted labor negotiation between employers and our longshore workforce that went on longer than any of us expected. We faced great congestion at our port in Los Angeles, and to the point where I can now say that we were at one time within 24 hours of closing down the port after the unfortunate demise of Hanjin Shipping, and assets that were dispersed under those distressed containers that were all over the region and the country in the United States. But what we were able to do were bring people to the table, each had a meaningful voice, so we can correct those ills that were so commonplace at our port. Finding ways to eliminate congestion was job number one. We worked very closely with the highest levels of our federal government to create awareness and bring people together. Having symposiums like this during good times so we can fashion better solutions is exactly what this industry needs, whether it be here in India or the United States. And that's a level of collaboration that I believe we can take to a higher level together. Secondly, we found ways to immediately streamline and create solutions. I was very heartened by the fact that even adversaries or competitors were willing to sit down to try to fix the problems and pain points within our industry. We then began to embark on relationship building at different levels. I immediately went to Washington, D.C. to find ways to partner with United States Customs. In U.S. Customs, they hold many data elements today, and we found as a municipal government agency, the ability to share that information may unlock some potential for us. So we forged a direct business relationship with U.S. Customs, shortly to follow with the liner shipping companies, who necessarily weren't accustomed to sharing information. Once we've got those two general entities on our side, we started to see the data flow happen much more rich. And from there, as any good public agency would do, we went out to tender in the public forum to see if we could find technology companies that would be interested in working with us. And we talked to many very large and famous companies, small to medium-sized entities, and even startups to see if they would be interested in this pathway in the supply chain. And what we found from there is that with those data points, we needed someone who was not only very capable in technology development, but one that was also trusted by both the public and private sector. And we found that company in General Electric. The digital industrial company, as it was being fashioned, had much experience in railroads, transportation, capabilities of analytics around capital assets, and some great work with cargo owners and shippers worldwide. Adding to their portfolio and utilizing the port's ability to bring stakeholders together was a natural progression for General Electric. And as we began to compare notes, this competitive bid process was very transparent, very public. The evaluators were neutral in their disposition, so as to give a very patient report of who the best capabilities could be drawn from in our quest to develop an IT partnership. And once General Electric was chosen and the initial meetings took place, we decided then to create software that would aggregate or bring together all of these data elements. In the US and in Los Angeles in particular, we found that many stakeholders were looking at multiple websites every day, trying to gather as much information as possible. And it took people, staff members, operational staff, many, many hours every day just to understand how cargo should flow in that given day. And what GE's first challenge was to bring all of this data together under a single pane of glass. And what we found in our research is that trucking companies, railroaders, cargo owners, and intermediaries all found that they could reduce the amount of time that their staff was doing research and focus on their consultancy and delivery and execution. So we think we found a very good formula right from the beginning in saving our customers time so they could focus on their core capabilities. And from that original thesis, General Electric was able to design a system and go to market for a pilot project within 5 months. Never before had our industry in the US seen that quick of a pace for a technology company to come in and start to add value. And it was very important for us in this pilot to understand how information sharing could help us. And what we have found is that on average, we could increase our efficiencies between 8 and 12%. So if you're looking as a certain stakeholder to reduce cost, we believe that's real. In my case, at the Port of Los Angeles, for very small investment compared to traditional infrastructure, we could increase the port's capacity because we were becoming more savvy in how to manage data and cargo flow. Now, this is only the beginning, but we are now rolling out the General Electric Port Optimizer to the entire Port of Los Angeles, which is the largest port in the Western Hemisphere. And our next door neighbor, Long Beach, will be starting a pilot this summer. Those two ports combined, handling more than 40% of our nation's imports, will have a significant impact on efficiencies while using this data in a much different way. Some of the unique designs that went into this system are to make sure the competitors cannot see each other's data. Through channeled access and decision rights in the architecture, we are very comfortable with that and making sure there's a segregation of data. Also, security is very important to us, not only for the user, but in the cyber arena. And particularly of note, at the Port of Los Angeles, we own and operate the nation's only port cybersecurity center. So we wanted to find ways specifically to blend that cyber technology along with our transportation technology. And in testing, where we've seen some breaches around the world, the system has met every stress test that we've given it. Now again, we have much more to learn and a lot more to do, but this has been part of the real conversation here in India, at the federal government level and at JNPT. Over several meetings, we have found ways to collaborate now on technology, and that's going to be very exciting to share opportunities and experience at two of the world's great ports. The work in this area won't slow down, but I think, again, having forums like this symposium and being able to expand our networks will have a great ability to get us in our shipping industry, our supply chain, and in the research that we do at the academic level that Nick is leading back home in Los Angeles, will really bring this industry closer and find us looking for greater success in the future. And with that, I thank you very much. And I appreciate Nick and Raj, the great invitation to share our experiences right here in Mumbai. Thank you. And I think we have time for a couple of questions. Do we have the microphones out there? Great. The gentleman up here at the second table. And I think the handheld microphones are coming out pretty quickly. Okay, we're going to ask you to move swift so we can keep on pace this afternoon. Great. I think the gentleman in the white shirt at the first table.
So good afternoon. I wanted to know what would be the transactional costs at your port, especially in Los Angeles, for a trader or a manufacturer or an exporter. The transactional costs involved.
The connection of costs?
Transactional cost.
Transactional cost of what?
Of doing an export or an import for a importer or an exporter, like,
Okay.
in terms of the cost which he has to bear. The port handling charges and other charges. What would be the element for a average transaction?
The transactional cost at a marine terminal, for example?
Yes.
Transactional cost today in a depressed market where competition is driving prices down is in the neighborhood of $325 to $350 per container moving through a marine terminal.
That's pretty low, very low. It's excellent.
Yeah, and that, you know, part of what we're attempting to do through optimization, both on the physical process side as well as the digitization of information, is try to make sure that our port complex and marine terminals are transit areas. We don't want containers dwelling for a long time, and that's been a problem for us too. That raises that transactional cost. If we have truckers who cannot get their containers timely, that raises the cost as well. So part of our technology development will also include a universal truck appointment system that'll all be managed by computer, and even with variances in traffic delays or the ability for the trucker to meet time scheduling, the algorithmic formulas will drive those trucks to the easiest path of container delivery and pickup. And then lastly, to help reduce that transactional cost, we're looking for dual transactions. So we want to ensure that the trucker is bringing in an export container and picking up an import container on the same run, or dropping an empty and picking up an import. We don't want trucks driving without containers, because that will add even more truck gate activity, which will cause congestion. So all of these principles we think are achievable, but we really have to roll up our sleeves and get to work every day. Great question, I appreciate it. Gentleman in the white shirt in the back, and gentleman in the blue jacket. Okay, we've got three in that order if we can hustle around.
Good afternoon, my name is Ramesh Raut. I'm ex-APM Terminals. Yep.
Yes.
I would like to know what is the throughput you have in this particular port? Throughput of the containers for your exports and imports in a period of 24 hours. What is the total throughput you have?
Okay, the annual throughput is, you coming from the industry understand, 9.34 million TEUs on an annual basis. On average, we're doing about 800,000 TEUs per month. On a daily basis, we're doing about 35,000 truck gate moves per day across 8 container terminals. And the interesting thing in this area is there are so many stakeholders. Today, we're building 50 trains per day that are no less than 3 kilometers in length, the 35,000 truck moves. And equally as important, there are more than 200,000 shippers of record that utilize the port on an annual basis. No one shipper has greater than a 2% market share. So we're dealing with many, many people every day.
And what are the total number of QCs you have?
Total number of?
The QCs, the container handling equipments at the wharf.
QCs?
We call it QC over here. The cranes basically which lift up the containers from the ship.
Oh, the gantry cranes? There are 91 gantry cranes at the Port of Los Angeles at those 8 container terminals today. 91. And they're all electrified, so eco-friendly in that respect. And the 91 cranes spread over those terminals are traditionally working 9 8-hour shifts per week. And that's where I also see a great room for improvement, because at the Port of Los Angeles, after our research, we show that those 91 cranes are operational only 50% of the time during that 9-shift work week. So how can we better put the right ship of proper slot size at the best location every day to drive more efficiencies and cut down that dwell or wait time? And I see that as probably our biggest challenge, to get greater crane productivity over these shifts of work.
Yep. And one last thing, and what is the draft level you have over there? Recently you mentioned that there is something, a ship, vessel what you have which can carry 24,000 TEUs. So what is the draft level at the port you have over there?
Yeah, another good question. The draft level in the main channel is 53 feet or greater, alongside the berth, ranging anywhere from 47 feet to 53 feet or greater as well. The interesting concept there is some 30 years ago, when the port was focused on its bricks and mortar infrastructure, our mayor and port manager thought that they needed deeper channels, wider turning basins, and fortified deep wharfs. So even before we began to see 18,000 and greater TEU ships, the port had prepared itself with that deep water and strong wharf. We continue to take advantage of that today, but the work on preventative maintenance and dredging continues on a daily basis to maintain or deepen. So I feel very confident now with the largest class of vessels, not only in our trade, but worldwide, that we have the capability of servicing those quite great. And I mentioned that move count, more than 24,000 TEUs on one vessel call off of one ship, I think is very important from a productivity statement, that we show we have the discipline and we can improve upon that as we go forward as well. Great line of questions, thank you. There was a gentleman on that side, yes.
So if you were to name two things we can do better at our terminals in India, and I believe you have a good understanding of the JNPT, what would they be?
Well, far be it from me, but I can tell you the work that we are starting to do at the federal level in New Delhi and at JNPT in Shiva, two pieces that come to mind right away in our discussions and dialogue and early planning. One is to help reduce congestion, and especially around truck queues. And maybe there are some learnings we can take, such as the dual transactions that have been in place so far for 20 months at JNPT and the associated private terminals. We think that collectively we could do a better job in Los Angeles, and there could be better work done here. And then the second is what I've just described. How can these two great ports harness the information better so we have more capability up front? Not just visibility, but the ability to create predictive and prescriptive analytics, to have real-time tracking of when those ships are going to berth and how quickly we can get them to leave. And through those data analytics, I think we can open up new areas for capacity growth, but also a more systematic approach to the port optimization. And I think in our early discussions thus far, both of our ports realize that we can improve in these areas and work together to find those improvement opportunities pretty swiftly. Thanks. Okay, well, I appreciate the time this afternoon. And again, thank you to Nick and Raj for the invitation, and look forward to continual collaboration between our ports here in India and the Port of Los Angeles. Thank you.
That's very kind of you. Can we please request you to kindly hold on center stage? We love to felicitate you. I need to say that your bright smile has probably brightened people's faces post-lunch when you sit there and you feel that, wow, you're really enjoying the ports of LA, but at the same time you're getting a wink, but it's because of your smile and because of the way you speak that you kept us awake. Thank you so much for that, sir. Truly an honor to have you post-lunch. Can we please request Mr. Raj Dice once again and Mr. Nick Vyas, please, to present a memento and a lovely bouquet to Mr. Eugene Seroka. Everyone in the house, can I see all your hands together, people, with the music on the beat? Please enjoy this. We have lovely sessions, we have keynote speakers, we have panelists, and not to forget, post which we have a great celebration entertainment evening too. So all you people, please be awake. This is still the beginning of the day. Once again, can I please request you all, so that we are awake, to put your hands together for CEO and Executive Director of LA Port USA, Mr. Eugene Seroka. Thank you very much, Mr. Dilip Mehta, for joining us too, along with Mr. Raj. Thank you very much. And Mr. Nick. Maja avi gyu. Thank you, sir.